Classic Business, brought to you by Telkom. A presentation has been made to Parliament regarding suggested amendments to the proposed Private Security Industry Regulation Amendment Bill to the Private Security Industry Regulation Act. Now, some of the issues are arguably unconstitutional and invalid, as they may infringe the constitutional rights to equality and property. That's according to Peter Leon, partner at Webber Wenzel. Peter, you have addressed Parliament about your concerns and your input about the Private Security Amendment Bill. Tell us a bit about the bill and what it entails for the country.
Yes, Glenn, what the bill does is it basically requires private security operators in South Africa to be 51% South African owned within 5 years of the bill coming into effect, which I assume will be sometime next year, on the grounds that the fact that they're not 51% South African owned represents a security risk as a result of a cabinet investigation which was done earlier this year, the details of which haven't been released. There are clearly a number of issues around this, not least the fact that no compensation is offered under the bill to owners of these private security companies, many of which have been in South Africa for a number of years, such as ADT and others. A number of which are owned by American shareholders or UK shareholders. So the ostensible ground for doing this is, the intelligence threat that non-South African shareholders represent. I mean, why 51% has been chosen as a figure is not entirely clear. The second thing the bill does is require all private security personnel to be South African citizens. At the moment, security guards and others can be permanent residents. I think that is also constitutionally problematic because the Constitutional Court in a number of two important decisions has protected the rights of permanent residents and said that, if people are allowed to live in the country permanently, they've had to go through quite an exhaustive process to get there. And they therefore, to discriminate against them is problematic. So that's the second aspect of the bill, which I think is troublesome. And then the third, and perhaps a fairly obvious one, is as a number of these companies are UK incorporated in the United Kingdom, there is a bilateral investment treaty in force between South Africa and the United Kingdom, which prohibits the expropriation of United Kingdom investments in South Africa, except for full market value compensation, and also stops the government here from treating UK investments unfairly or inequitably in South Africa. And I believe that the bill, if it is passed in its current form, could well trigger arbitration proceedings under that treaty.
And Peter, what message does this send out to foreign investors?
I think it sends an absolutely shocking message because, South Africa's already suffered, as you well know, a serious drop in FDI. I think the figure was 43%, according to UNCTAD, in the last year. After Marikana in August, it's obviously going to get a lot worse. And this is sending a really bad message to foreign investors that this is not a country which is open for business. So it completely undermines the message the Department of Trade and Industry is trying to get out internationally in the wake of Marikana.
And of course, one of the concerns, just listening to what you have to say, is if the amendments come in that only a South African citizen can hold that job, not a permanent resident, there's going to be job losses.
Absolutely. That is a very important issue. Job losses, both at the executive level, because it says that you have to be a citizen in order to be a director of the company or a senior manager, but at a much lower level, just at the security guard level, where there are a number of African citizens from other African countries who are permanently resident in South Africa, who hold jobs as security guards, and the bill just doesn't address that issue other than to say that henceforth they will have to be South African citizens. So, the immediate issue is what happens to all, I think, thousands of security guards who are not South African citizens who are going to be affected by this legislation.
Peter, can you take us through the actual procedure to get this bill into law? As you did address Parliament this afternoon, where to from now?
Well, Well, the parliamentary hearings are carrying on next week. I'm pleased to say the committee has decided to talk to the National Treasury about the bill because the cost of this bill is pretty staggering. Basically, what the private security industry regulator wants to do is to move away from funding by the industry, which they think, leads to regulatory capture, and get funding from the government. And the figure I saw on Tuesday was something in the order of 230 million rand. Once the whole thing is up and running, it looks like a pretty giant and very expensive bureaucracy. There's no indication the Treasury are going to be prepared to fund it. So the committee is still hearing evidence next week from the Treasury and indeed from the Department of Trade and Industry about the bilateral investment treaty implications. And it will then deliberate on the bill. I think the intention is to pass it by the end of November, certainly at the National Assembly level. So obviously there's been an instruction from higher up to get this legislation passed as soon as possible. But, I don't think that's the end of the issue, because it would still obviously have to go to the National Council of Provinces for affirmation, and it could well be challenged both in court and in international arbitration. So hopefully, the committee is going to listen to some of the points that are being made.
Peter Leon, partner and head of Africa Mining and Energy. Weber Wenzel, thank you for speaking to us on Classic Business. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa has come out saying the government should drive economic growth by procuring from local manufacturers instead of importing goods. It was reacting to reports